here this morning, it was not quite an unveiling, of the first portrait of a cricketer to enter the collection since W.G. Grace.
Stand this side again.
Finally, a picture went on show today in the National Portrait Gallery, and it's left a lot of people wondering who it's meant to be. He's the first cricketer to be added to the collection since Grace, and of course it's Ian Botham. He's also pictured in an etching together with the artist John Bellany.
It's not just a photograph of the guy, as everybody knows. It's trying to get the spirit of the man and embody that in a synthesised way in paint.
"1986 has been a big year for Scottish artist John Bellany. Following the unveiling of the Botham portrait, the National Portrait Gallery in London mounted a major exhibition of his portraits of family and friends completed over the previous 18 months.
Splendid. Terrific show. Wonderful.
I'm a capitalist. I believe that Bellany is a great painter.
Oh, I see.
I believe he has a magnificent attitude of colour presentation. You can look at his paintings.
Ian Botham's former agent, Tim Hudson, was another sitter.
What are the paintings you have?
Hudson and his wife Maxie were so impressed by Bellany's work that they purchased the entire exhibition, 25 portraits, reputedly for a six-figure sum.
I thought that when he did that, you must have had been a rough night.
It was a good night, yes.
Yes?
Yeah, I mean, you see how John finished up with two heads.
That's right, yeah. That was after, that was before.
You look a bit like a medieval sort of
Unifying themes behind the pictures is, of course, that they're all portraits of people that relate to John in one way or another, either as close friends or direct members of the family. I think that's the sort of unity behind them. I think most people wouldn't think of John as a portrait painter at all, but the fact of the matter is, of course, that most of his paintings are very much portraits in whatever sense. They may be purely symbolic, but there's barely a picture in which he himself doesn't appear, or his wife or his children in some form or other. And I think recently he's been much more inclined to tackle them head-on, rather than as sort of symbolic references in his pictures.
I've not, I'd love to go.
Paintings of family, friends, and the fishermen of the east coast of Scotland, where he was brought up, dominate the work of John Bellany. As a student in the 60s, when most fashionable artists were looking towards American painting and its preoccupations with form, Bellany resolutely concerned himself with the human figure and the possibilities of representing in symbolic and visionary terms the human condition. While his style has undergone many changes since those early years, the imagery remains constant, obsessively autobiographical in its associations, yet clear and disturbingly universal.
Is this your life?
Oh.
What ages were you there?
That's quite a handsome one, yeah.
That's a real sappy one, that.
My background was based in a fishing village called Port Seton, of course, which you know, on the Firth of Forth in Scotland.
Typical pose.
Both sides of the family were fisher people, both on my mother's side and my father's side. Port Seton was a bit like a Scottish under-Milt Wood in a way, a place for extremes. They used to do it every night. They used to come round and collect me at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. With the religious Calvinist domination on one side and this joie de vivre extreme on the other. It wasn't a place for an easy middle road. And there was enormous fun as well, and love and joy, and it was just a smashing place. And then my mother's came from Eyemouth, which is a bit further down the coast, which is much more beautiful visually as a place. And I suppose I spent most of my childhood between the two places. There's always that thing there, you think of Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea. there's always this elemental struggle going on. And I think this is what comes through in the paintings quite often, which I try to portray anyway. It's not a plastic world that they live in.
The early work is already heroic in scale and intent, and the image of the artist himself is there to haunt the scene.
The Eyemouth disaster, which was in 1881, was one of these freak storms blew up, and 129 men lost their lives in one day, one freak storm, which left all these widows and all these children. So it was and that was actually the year my grandfather was born, 1881. So it was a strange situation. There was suddenly no men in the village at all.
While the harsh lives of the Eyemouth and Port Seton fishermen provided the dramatic content, Bellany turned for artistic inspiration to his heroes from the European figurative tradition.
I think heroes are important. This marvellous story, when Matisse died, Picasso was in a terrible state, and they said, "What's wrong with you?" And he says, "Matisse is dead, who can I paint for now?" You know, there's a bit of that. You have to have that edge, real. It's got to be the real thing. You can't fiddle around.
Another personal hero was the Chilean painter Roberto Matta.
He was across one day with him and his wife, and they were looking at the paintings, were blathering away. And there's that big early painting, I think it was painted in 1966. And he said, "Do you know, John, this picture here you will paint it for the rest of your life." And I thought, nonsense this is, you know. And when we went down to the studio and we were talking away about the work for ages, and he says, "There's something worrying you, isn't it?" I says, "Well, I'll tell you what. When I was about your age, or even younger," he says, "there was this artist came to my studio and he said, 'Mata, you will paint that picture for the rest of your life.'" And it's the same thing. He says, "I thought it was just so much hot air, you know." And he says, "As I've grown older," he says, "I realised he was right." And he says, "You know who the artist was, John? Henri Matisse." So I thought it was good enough for Henri Matisse. And in fact, the more I thought about Matta was dead right. It's just an incredible, astute observation. I do like a thumbnail sketch thing, on a small sketch pad, just of the very rough draft of the composition. And then what I do is tend to work very directly after that. And then, of course, I haven't painted all my life, and I've done loads and loads, hundreds of drawings and lots of painting. And I think the physical skill of it, you've been learning all that time. So there's some things in terms of the language that just flow, that maybe 10 years ago I would have had a struggle, much more of a struggle with. And then you think the picture's going okay, and then wham, the thing evaporates, you know, the idea evaporates and you're hit rock bottom. And you have to give it the kiss of life. And sometimes it resurrects itself and you're okay. You never can tell, to quote Bernard Shaw. It's a great mystery. Everybody thinks their dad's great, but I had a particularly good one. But really a terrible state when he died this year in June. And I mean, it's a pretty hard life being a fisherman and everything, but nothing was any bother to him at all. He was just full of joy, you know, and marvellous sense of humour, which is a great thing to have. The other side of my dad was making these boats and bottles, which he did with such care, and the big models, big model boats. They're immaculate. Just from a lump of wood, you can make something, make it breathe almost. And they were so accurate, you know. I would think that's where the drawing and all that size comes from. I think drawing is the root of everything. I just draw all the time. Whether it's on paper or etching plate, lithography, or there's always drawing, I just draw non-stop. Whether it's with a sketchbook full of notes, or whether it's actually drawing direct of a friend or somebody right in front of me. There are piles of them, piles and piles of drawings. There's some best good ones there, all of different people. It's mostly friends that I draw. It's the most instinctive thing. It's more instinctive than writing a sentence.
The natural talent for drawing, evident from early childhood, was further honed by a rigorous training at Edinburgh College of Art, where he went in 1960. He soon distinguished himself there as a prodigious painter, and outside the college he made his mark during the Edinburgh Festival. For 3 successive years, Bellany and fellow student Sandy Moffat hung their paintings on the railings in Princes Street Gardens outside the Royal Scottish Academy. The enterprise attracted enormous public attention, not only because of the striking quality of the work, but also for the boldness of the gesture.
So we actually wanted the art to be for everybody to enjoy. And we used to get guys coming along on their way to go and see the Hibs or something. Come along and blether away and say, oh, we never thought, you know, we'd ever see anything like this here. It's absolutely wonderful. We can see ourselves in these pictures. Whereas they would never have thought about, they didn't think they were allowed to go into the building behind. You know, because that was only for the toffs. A flight of romance here. I mean, when we carried these pictures across the Princes Street on our backs to hang on the railings, it wasn't just about a wee petty argument with the guys who showed inside the RSAs. It was a gesture of, in our wee imaginations at the time, of the level of Jericho taking the raft of Medusa, that masterpiece that hangs in the Louvre. That went all around Europe with him, even to Scotland, to a church hall. Just to show this one masterpiece. It was with that sort of spirit, you know. not with a petty thing.
In 1965, John Bellany left Scotland and his native Port Seton to study at the Royal College of Art in London.
Was howling on moor and on mountain, and dark was the surge of the deep rolling sea.
Bellany settled in London and has lived there ever since. He now has a house overlooking Clapham Common. In 1967, while still a student at the Royal College, Bellany visited East Germany with Sandy Moffat and another Scottish friend, the writer Alan Bold. A trip to the site of Buchenwald concentration camp made a profound impression.
I think that was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life, actually seeing that place, seeing that what one human being can do to another. It just was frightening beyond words. I can't even describe it. Buchenwald's called beechwood. It's German for beechwood, and not one animal or bird or anything has ever gone there since. It's extraordinary, isn't it? It's astonishing how inhuman people can be. In fact, I don't know how people can actually exist having been in a place like that. They must be enormously courageous. That was staggering. Profound effect on me. That affected the work, of course. It comes through all the time in the work. Because there's so much love about. To see the other extreme was devastating. It's just. Again, it's these extremes, isn't it? That human beings are capable of such height, and yet capable of such horror. Terrible.
When he went to the Royal College, I took time off to go and see him there. And he was working in a place about 3 times the size of a telephone kiosk, doing these massive great pictures in partitions, and occasionally putting them out in the corridor to have a good look at them. Because of his tiny little kiosk and the lack of space in the Royal College, we had devised the scheme of bringing all the work up just before they graduated to our college and putting it in the central sculpture court. And John was invited to do this, and he accepted, and on a day all the work arrived, and it was arranged by himself, and then he put a stool in the middle of the great hall, and he sat on it and turned that stool about while he just took in his work. That, to me, was an enormously impressive performance, knowing how little space he had. He must have been mind-boggled in a way at the sight of what he had done.
John, you remember the day that you fell in the harbour when you were drunk?
Keep that quiet, all that stuff quiet. The main thing is I got out.
And how was it at the time when we shaved you up here?
It's still surviving.
I mean, I couldn't do the kind of work I do, or I couldn't adore the kind of painters I adore, or the kind of writers or musicians I adore, if I lived on this kind of middle, easy middle stream kind of life, you know. There are peaks of high intensity up here, you know, just the kind of way I live my life, and then there's also the plunge to the depths of despair, and it's only through these kind of extremes that I think my work is fed.
This one is about 10 years earlier than this one. And I think it's very interesting about this early one, which is painted towards the late 1960s, that the figures are seen absolutely head-on, and that they are human figures with sort of nothing intervening and no kind of overt preoccupations with style. And I think it's a very, very powerful picture with that kind of concentration that you often get in the very early breakthrough work of an artist. About 10 years later, you can see that John's technique has loosened up extraordinarily. It's just as much concerned as the first picture is with his own personal experience, but at the same time it's also archetypal, and he's merged together in an even more complicated way the straightforward facts of his experience of the fishing industry, his experience of marriage, and a sense of archetype going right back across the centuries.
There's such a difference between using heavy, strong iconography, or with power and real spiritual insight and painting passion, which is known as figurative art. And there's also another side which is really not to do with this creative thing, which is bastardized into sort of cheap illustration. There's nothing wrong with illustration in itself, that's a separate activity. But the painting is painting, I mean, you can have the most marvelous narrative to put across, but if it can be rubbish if you can't paint. Your vehicle is important as well. But I'm definitely not saying, I totally disagree with the medium is the message, the Marshall McLuhan thing, or the massage, as I would rather say. I mean, I think that's nonsense. I think, I actually believe in having something to say. I think that's all important. But it's how you interpret it.
Like Goya, another of his artist heroes, Bellany transfigures the images of his personal life into allegory. But from the late 70s, the painting takes a new direction. While previously the meaning was carried almost entirely by the image alone, now it is absorbed equally into the painterly fabric of the work. A kind of abstraction creeps in. The style may have changed, yet the obsessions remain the same.
You have to have that edge, real. It's got to be the real thing. It's got to be the real thing. It's got to be the real thing. It's got to be the real thing.
And it's only through these kind of extremes that I think my work is fed. There are peaks of high intensity up here. There's also the plunge to the depths of despair.
I did a Lazarus.
In 1984, John Bellany suffered an extended and near-fatal illness, which has proved a major turning point in his life and work.
I think I had just been living life like Hercules, really, and suddenly realised I was only Kirk Douglas, and I got a bit of a fright, so I've had to quell my passions in a certain direction which is actually much better. So I'm just happy as anything, living a full life again. I just got a wee bit of a fright, and had a little sojourn in St Thomas's Hospital for 2 or 3 weeks. But I'm fine now, well, as you can see. The first pictures I did when I came out of hospital, obviously I couldn't paint for a while, I was just doing drawings, because I was pretty weak. But the first pictures were pretty horrendous things. Time will tell, titles like that. But the palette seems to have lifted in key, and they're actually more joyful, more optimistic. It's chapter 2. It really is chapter 2, and I think that the drawing is sharper. I mean, you'll have to make up your own mind about that. But there's more light flooding them. I don't know. That just has to come instinctively. It's just happened. Going back to these railings things, there was a couple of guys came along one Saturday, 2 or 3 of them. They were obviously going to the pub or to the football or something, and they went, "You guys are pretty good, you know, if you stick in, you maybe get your pictures in there," you know, missing the whole point of the exhibition. But heavens, I'm now getting pictures in the gallery behind.
The gallery behind, that is the National Gallery of Modern Art in Scotland, has assembled a major retrospective spanning the last 20 years of Bellany's work. It is a fitting testimony to a powerful and obsessive vision, often painfully personal in its imagery, yet rarely less than epic in scope and ambition. John Bellany himself looks back at his first 44 years with a justifiable sense of awe.
It's extraordinary how you can look at the work over these 20 years, and it's really like a voyage through my life. You know, it's reflected so much. The reefs and rocks that you come across, and then the safe havens and the colossal waves, and then the clear ocean. I think I should take up poetry.